Hey everybody, Reed Price here. I play the role of Rob Shandon on Sullivan's Crossing. And you're listening to Corman Productions' Deep Dive TV Podcast with Dave and Stacie.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from the Corman Productions Deep Dive TV Podcast. My co-host Stacie here to talk about Sullivan's Crossing, Season 3, Episode 4, titled A Clear Perspective. The episode's description reads as follows. Cal struggles to forgive his parents for his difficult childhood as Maggie helps Cal find a new perspective to help him reconnect with his father before it's too late. Sully comes up with a novel idea to help Rob after Sydney confides in him about Rob's situation. Frank offers to help Jacob collect samples for his research, and the two make a shocking discovery that might be the answer Sully needs to take down his competitor. The episode was written by Roma Roth, and the episode was directed by Chris Grismer. This is his fourth stint on the series. Who knows? Maybe he'll be directing some episodes next season. Of course, Chris Grismer is my favorite director from Quantum Leap. Before we go further, I'll tell you a couple...
From the Quantum Leap revival, specifically.
Right, specifically.
Not to slight any original series directors.
No.
There were a lot of really good ones.
Yes. Before we go further, I'll tell you a couple things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend go check it out. And then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on the platforms of this podcast is now available on, please follow. And feel free to check out our YouTube channel, Core Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on our YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to our channel. All right, so we're going to start off with some birthday shout-outs. Stacie's going to give us that.
All right, so today, Friday, June 6th, is Robert Englund's 78th birthday. That, of course, is Freddy Krueger.
You know what's really funny about that? Is at one point I thought he had died. I thought he had passed away.
Well, I never heard that one.
And I'm wondering if that might be a Mandela effect.
It could be.
Thing.
Or it could have been just a death hoax, because celebrity death hoaxes go around.
I do not understand why people do that.
I don't either, but it happens an awful lot.
All right, and our other shout out was...
let's see, our friend Albie from the Quantum Leap Podcast and Trek Exploration. His birthday is this Sunday on June 8th. He's turning the big 5-0.
You know what? I'm really glad that I live reacted to that off air and not while we were recording, so as to not offend Albie, because I was really surprised to learn that he was 50 years old.
That's not offensive. That's a good thing.
Okay, fair enough.
That's a good thing.
Because he looks younger than his age.
Much younger than his age.
Okay.
Which means, he's doing something right.
All right, so we got the 2025 Screen Nova Scotia Awards. We got the winners for that. A couple that we want to shout out. Sharp Corner, that was for Best Feature Film. That, of course, features the likes of Reed Price, along with some other people that we know.
Yeah, I know we've mentioned a lot of it.
Yes.
It's come up a bunch. I just don't, off the top of my head, remember exactly who else was in that. But I know many people we've talked about are in that film, and it's definitely one we want to find at some point and watch.
I know that I can rent it somewhere.
We'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, it's not available to stream for free yet, but it is definitely something that I would like to see and eventually maybe even cover. For Best TV Series Scripted, that would be The Trades. That's a show that's come up many times in our podcast, talking about our Nova Scotia set of actors.
Yeah.
Outstanding Performances, Gil Anderson for The Trades, Reed Price for Sullivan's Crossing Season 2. In his acceptance speech, he did not come on and thank the Corman Productions Deep Dive TV Podcast.
He did not.
No, I was not expecting that, but it would have been fun.
His acceptance speech was funny because he... remember, he was nominated twice in that category. So out of 20 nominees, they picked 4 winners. And he was up for both Sullivan's Crossing and the name escaped me, the Christmas movie he did this past year. To Have and to Holiday.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Gotcha.
So when he goes up to acceptance speech, she went, wait, which one did I win for? Because he didn't hear that part.
Right.
And then he was like, I don't know who I'm supposed to be shouting out in my speech right now, because I don't know what I won. So that was funny.
And the final shout-out that we're doing for this is for Series Assemble. That'll be The Trades, which features Rob Wells, Susan Kent, and Jason Daly. So congratulations to all the winners of the Nova Scotia Screen Awards. I said it right.
Screen Nova Scotia.
Almost. I was close. Okay, and as far as shout-outs for our podcast, we got Skylar Anderson. He says that Finn and Rob have a phone conversation where he appears on camera. Finn is at camp. That was one of the deleted scenes that we did not see.
From episode 3.
Yep. And he doesn't remember seeing rape in the episode at all. And I can't say that that's a bad thing, because I'm starting not to like rape too much. But we'll get into
Rafe's
that.
got some stuff going on. Hopefully they work it out and he can apologize and get better.
I mean, if he does, fine. But I don't care that he... We'll get into that. But anyway... So, also Sharon Greenman says she'll try to be short in season 1, episode 8, Cal told Maggie he went to live with his grandparents for high school, so that could explain where young Cal is going.
Oh, he went to live with his grandparents.
Yes. So
okay.
that explains that.
Yeah, I knew there was some story, but I didn't remember it.
And she says, buying non-listed land next to Sully's in a private sale sounds like revenge to me. Glenn is a sleaze. And she says, I wonder if we'll find out why Jed didn't want Cal to go to law school. I think that was kind of the nature of their conflict, in that Jed was basically, he was about living the simple life. And that's the reason why he didn't want Cal to go to law school, because that was the opposite of living the simple life. At least that's how I take the conflict.
Yeah.
We don't really get any more background on that in this episode. But
their whole conflict was, forever, was
right.
just because, he was so hard to deal with
right.
growing up with his condition and all that. But specifically to law school, Jed, when he brought that up, he was like, oh, yeah, you don't need the stress. You don't need the stress of being a doctor or a lawyer. Why would you want to do that to yourself?
Right. I mean, it's
go travel.
Jed has a entirely different perspective on life than these two characters have.
You know what I'm curious about?
Yeah.
How does this family earn money?
That is a good question.
What?
Did they live off the fat of the land?
How did they pay their bills if they spent their whole lives just traveling on a bus?
I mean, they don't have any bills if they're just traveling on a bus.
You always have bills. You gotta pay for the gas, you gotta buy food.
Fair enough. Maybe they did
side jobs as they went.
Yeah. Like they, when they went to a town.
I mean, they probably don't have a ton of bills now. They inherited this farmhouse.
Right, yeah.
And whatever. But yeah, how did this family support themselves?
They just hunted their food. Maybe they sold some meat. Like they killed some live game and then sold it.
Maybe they're rich.
Maybe that's
the trick. Is
right.
Like
Be rich.
They inherited money already. Like they come from money, maybe, and that's why they don't care about doing stressful things, because they've never had to worry.
Gotcha. I mean, I know that there are people that live this type of lifestyle that are not rich. There's a movie called Nomads that you should probably check out if you.
I've seen that. I think
you did. Okay.
Yeah, that's the one. She lives in a van.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's a good, interesting.
She worked
movie.
at like a distribution center.
Yeah, it kind of treads the same kind of ground. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode?
Okay, so this really just piggybacks with episode 3. I mean, you can really tell how they're block filming with this episode and the last one. I really feel like the same. It's great. There's great scenes. There's great stuff here with Cal and his family. I'm glad that he got some closure and we're dealing with all that. But as far as our overall, here's what's happening in Sullivan's Crossing, I don't feel like we have made forward progress.
That's fair. I actually wanted a couple of things from this episode. I wanted it to be a Cal-centric episode where we mainly focus on his relationship with his dad. I didn't want the other stories to kind of drown out that story and make it not satisfying. And I also wanted Jed to still be alive when the episode was over. I didn't want them to kill him in this episode. And I don't know that we're going to see the character again.
Yeah, I was wondering that. Is this our final appearance for Jed?
I mean, probably.
Is the next time we're going to be hear about him, oh, he died and we're going to his funeral? I mean,
that's probably what's going to happen. But I'm glad that he didn't die in this episode. I mostly found this to be a satisfying hour of television. It did more or less what I wanted it to do. There are some other stories that I think I like the Rob side of things. I didn't necessarily like the other stuff that was going on.
I'm glad we're finally moving somewhere with Rob's story.
Yes.
It's been really slow going with him.
Yeah, and I'm glad but I could not take any more weeks of, oh, woe is me, I'm not going to be able to find a place. We need to move that in a forward direction.
Yeah, we're almost halfway through the season.
Right, yeah. We're 4 episodes in, and we need to get somewhere with that story. And I'm glad we finally did it. Well, probably the rest of the season will be him building up that restaurant space into something resembling a restaurant, but we'll see as we go. Anything else to say before diving in?
Yeah, and I meant to say this earlier, but I just found it in my notes. CTV has renewed Sullivan's Crossing for season 4.
That is exciting news.
It's exciting news. Now, CW has not made an announcement yet as to whether they will also air season 4, but
I can't imagine why they wouldn't.
Unless we get that weird tariff thing that's been buzzing, where it costs the U.S. more to import shows from other countries.
Right.
I could see that being a factor if that comes into play in the next year. But, the show's going to be made for season 4.
Right.
It has been confirmed that CTV has renewed it, which means they're going to produce it, and it's going to be made.
Right, whether we get to see it or not.
Which is amazing. Amazing news.
Yeah.
Yep. It's an early renewal.
Right.
I mean, we're only on episode 4. They're on, episode 7. But still, 3 episodes before the season ends to get an announcement already is pretty positive note.
Oh, the other thing I would say is that I am mostly satisfied with how Sullivan's Crossing is juggling its storylines this season. It doesn't feel it feels like everything is getting, I mean, other than maybe Rob, is getting satisfactory time. Whereas it's less jumbled. The stories are being told in a better fashion this season than I think prior seasons have. So maybe they're just figuring it out.
We haven't had one of those weird episode and a halves yet.
That was what I was sort of concerned with this week, that we were going to repeat that pattern and then have Jed die.
I mean, we still can't have an episode and a half coming up. I'm not sure.
Well, I was thinking Jed would die and then they would move on to something else.
Right.
The last couple of seasons have had kind of those deals. But yeah, this avoided that. This is a pretty strong hour of television in my mind as far as Sullivan's Crossing goes. All right, anything else to say before?
Let's see. We have no Lola this episode.
That was interesting.
Yeah, this was her week off. Everyone else from our regular recurring cast was there, other than Finn.
Right.
He's not regular anymore.
Right, no. Next time we see him, he's going to be 50 years old. I mean,
hey. Yeah. I guess it is summer, because he's been at camp an awful long time.
Right. He just lives at camp now. All right.
And then I just want to address the whole deleted scene situation.
Yeah.
So the CW length this week was 42 minutes and 17 seconds. The CTV length was 44 minutes and 6 seconds for a difference of 1 minute and 49 seconds. So a little bit shorter than the differences we've had the last couple weeks.
Any clue as to what might have been...
There's one press photo that shows Frank talking to the NSEA agent.
Okay.
Directly conversing with him, which we didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that scene was shortened for us, probably.
Okay.
Unless it was shortened for everybody.
Right. No big loss there.
And then the scene with Cooper this week felt exceptionally brief to me. It was 5 seconds.
It was rapid fire, and I'm not gonna lie. At this point, I don't care about the search and rescue scenes.
So I'm wondering if that scene was trimmed way down.
Maybe.
If there was supposed to be more to that, because it was just blink and you'll miss the entire scene.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay. We're not coming back to that. What was that supposed to be?
Right.
I know it's gonna come up again, but it was so brief that I'm just guessing maybe that's something.
I mean, it did lend credence to what Skylar Anderson was saying last week in that he was being a hard ass because Connie had let some things slide, and that seems to be how that scene played out. So it does lend credence to what Skylar Anderson was saying last week in his comments.
Yep. The only other thing, and I'm thinking this is just an error and not an actual thing that's different between the US and Canada versions, but if you look at the press photos for this week, which we play, if you're watching this through YouTube, you're going to see, those photos playing while we talk. The pictures with Cal and Maggie and the horse are all in this week's bundle.
When they were actually
aired last week.
Right, yeah.
Those were all in episode 4 photos. So that's where they are, because that's where I downloaded them. And that's what it says they are. We didn't have them last week. They came this week.
Right.
So I was very confused. It's probably an error. They probably just labeled them wrong. Right. And dropped them in their wrong place. Yeah. Or is it a very different cut between these 2 episodes?
You think that scene might have actually been in this week's episode as opposed to last week?
That's what I was like, why is this here? This is weird. This doesn't feel right.
Right.
And then I was like, maybe they did cut it really differently.
Maybe.
And one thing to that is as we lead into our scene by scene here, is this opening scene is very strange.
Yeah, because it's
compared to the way this show usually handles things.
Right.
So why don't you go ahead and let's get into it. And
all right. So the episode begins where we left off with a slight difference. Cal finds out his father's condition is terminal, and then basically Maggie does not say at what she said last week, which is, "I'm so sorry, Cal." That's skipped over. That's not in this scene.
It is, but later.
Oh, okay.
So what they did is we took the scene from last week.
Yeah.
And we interjected stuff in between it.
Gotcha.
Which is not something they usually do on this show.
Right, no.
It was weird cutting.
Yeah. So Cal wants to know what they do now. Maggie is suggesting radiation. Okay, here's my first and really only problem here. The condition is terminal, which means he's going to die. I don't mind Cal asking the question, what do we do now? I mind Maggie's answer because, she at this point should be saying, like, if it's terminal, perhaps there's nothing we can do.
I mean, this is where you decide, are you getting treatment or not getting treatment?
I mean, like, these characters have already made up their minds. But,
sure, but they don't know that at that moment.
Yeah, okay. So
she's giving her medical answer.
Right. Maggie's suggesting radiation, but basically Jed and Marissa have both decided that Jed has decided that he's not going to go forward with medication. Jed just wants to enjoy the visit and not talk about things that can't be changed. And, Cal's like, are you okay with this, Mom? Like, are you okay that he's just going to, die and not try to, give himself some time? And basically, they end up leaving the scene. Cal says he can't believe that they did not tell him about this. And he leaves, and Maggie looks worried, and that's where we have our credits.
So right before Cal leaves is when we hear Maggie's "I'm so sorry."
Right.
And it's the same scene we saw last
right.
week.
It's just cut differently.
So they cut it weird.
Yeah.
It reminds me of classic Quantum Leap episodes, where our leap in the beginning of an episode is often an extended version of the leap out we saw in the last episode.
That's that wasn't too different from television back then. I don't think that's the case like with modern television. Usually you don't see like a different cut of the same scene.
It's weird to see.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, if a show does it, they do it. But this show has never done that before.
Right. No.
At the very beginning, I was like, oh, are they giving us previously on? Like, no, they're just giving us a totally different scene with the same footage in it as well.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the weakest part of the episodes for me is this intro because it is so different.
Which is why I'm questioning, did the CW just cut these two episodes completely different than they were intended?
Right, maybe.
Like, maybe the horse was supposed to be this week. Maybe they shot these, block shot these, and it just didn't work into the two blocks that they wanted it to. I don't know. So something was weird about the flow between these two episodes.
Right. And by the way, I think this is actually a better written episode for the most part than last week. This actually makes Marissa a more reasonable character than some of the lines we got from her last week.
It really feels like these two episodes should have been like a double-parter.
Yeah.
Like, it was all just continuation of the same things,
Right. Except expanded upon, and it adds depth and makes it make more sense.
Right.
Than the previous week did. So when we come back from the credits, Sully is coming to the outpost with flowers for Edna, who's wondering if he's feeling okay. He's never brought her flowers before. He warns that Frank is in the garden with Jacob. Sully is going to go to Helen's to do some repairs and bringing her some coffee. Edna acts surprised by this, and Sully's like, what, can a man bring a girl some coffee without getting the third degree? He's doing his typical gruff act, but it is very clearly an act, and he's not even really trying to act.
Yeah, but he probably doesn't realize how obvious he is.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he does.
He might not. I'm thinking he might not even realize himself what he's doing.
You think so?
Because he's...
Oh, come on.
Listen.
He has that smile on his face in both weeks.
Part of him knows, of course.
Right.
But I think he's in denial, even to himself,
that makes sense.
About what's going on with Helen. He doesn't want to admit it.
Right.
Not that he doesn't want to admit it to Edna. He doesn't want to admit it to himself.
I don't know. He definitely is happier, and he's trying to act grumpy, even though he's very much not. He's putting on an act. And,
because that's who he wants to be.
Right, yeah.
He doesn't like change.
No.
He doesn't want to have feelings.
but he very clearly does, and he's also kind of smiling about it at the same time. So he's happy, but, it's relatable stuff.
He's repressing it.
Yeah,
he wants to repress it, even though at the same time, obviously, he's enjoying the experience.
Right, yeah.
But also, like, shouldn't we be done with these repairs?
Maybe. I mean, I guess it goes to the fact that he's taking his.
This is like his third time going to do these same 4 repairs.
He's doing a bad job on purpose, I guess.
He's going to fix the door today. Didn't we do that the day the bird got in? Wasn't that the reason the bird got in? Because it got in while you were fixing the door?
Isn't it a different door? I don't know. So we go back to Cal's family's farm. Maggie wakes up to Cal, who hasn't slept. He's basically just getting up, I guess, at this point, because he can't stop thinking about his dad. He thinks he should have come here sooner. I'm not sure what difference that would make, but it's a typical question that he's
I think he's blaming himself. Like, if I was here earlier, I could have convinced him to get treatment before it
progressed to being terminal.
Well, it moved, right? It was one kind of cancer, and then it what's the word? It jumped.
I don't think it changed. I think it's
No,
the same
did.
cancer.
It was.
Oh, it moved. So
Was it prostate cancer or testicular cancer? One of those.
It was
and now
pancreatic cancer.
Now it's pancreatic
right,
cancer.
Right, yeah. Okay, I'm not really sure.
The word I'm forgetting, where it
spreads?
Yeah, I don't think that's the word.
No? Okay.
I don't know. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get you.
Because before, they didn't think it was terminal.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, now it definitely is. So Cal decides to go get some fresh air, and Maggie says she wishes there's something she could do. Maggie is, by the way, a very good girlfriend in this episode. I think her performance as a girlfriend is quite good, I thought.
Sure.
So Sully shows up at Helen's. They're kind of awkward together. She's over the writer's block thanks to Sully and their little trek to
the boardwalk.
The boardwalk. He's finished her book, and she asked if he's changed his mind about romance. He avoids the question entirely. Goes back to doing. He's like, oh, I got to go back to work.
Yeah, he really likes the book. He's like, I can't wait to find out if these two lead characters get together.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, you got to let me finish writing the next book so we can find out.
Right. And he basically checking her out while pretending to do repairs at the same time. Jacob and Frank return to the outpost. He's looking for Lola, who we don't see this week, because he wants to take her to look into some lichens in the woods. Is that how you pronounce it?
Collect lichen.
Lichen, okay.
To collect some samples.
And so Lola, nowhere to be found this week, but he ends up settling for Frank. And
yeah, I don't think that's what he was aiming for, but Frank's going to go with him.
At the same time, I'm glad that the entire focus of Jacob's character is not Lola.
Right.
And that we're getting a little bit of Frank.
He's actually here, like, to do research, like he said he's here to do.
Well, not only that, but interact with his family.
Sure, but, like, he's taking the science seriously. Right. It wasn't just an excuse to hang out with Lola.
Right. So, Maggie and Cal's mom, they're talking about Cal. She asks if she thinks... Oh, yeah, okay. So Marissa asks if Jed is making the right decision in not getting treatment. That's a complicated question.
Well, she's asking for...
a medical opinion.
She's asking for Maggie's medical opinion without Jed or Cal in the room.
Gotcha.
I think this is an important conversation. This is her doing what Cal accuses her of not doing. Because... remember, Cal's like, oh, you always just agree with him, you back him up, you don't have your own opinions. This is her not doing that. This is her trying to be informed.
Right. Okay. At the same time, can Maggie really give that opinion based on nothing?
She's not like, give me your medical opinion.
Okay,
she's just talking to someone who she knows something.
Right. And, I think Maggie's answer is pretty good. Basically, it could buy him some time. There's no way to know how much. And I think that's really the question is, if he were to get treatment, how much time would it give him? Is it worth it to do?
Right.
And she can't really give an answer to that question. But
basically, Maggie is not saying, oh my God, you have to get treatment. It's going to make this giant difference. It's going to give you years more of your life.
Right.
She's kind of agreeing with him. Like, maybe it's not worth it.
Yeah.
She's not using all those words, but she's not disagreeing in the way that Cal is kind of disagreeing.
Yeah, and that makes sense because, Cal is his son, so he has a vested interest in keeping Jed alive, even if he has all this hatred and anger towards the man.
Right.
Maggie is kind of a neutral party, so to speak, even though she's really not, but she's more so than Cal would be at this point.
Exactly.
Plus she has the medical degree to go along with it.
Right.
But let's see. They're
both really worried about what it's going to do to Cal when Jed dies.
Marissa talks about the difficult past and says they also had their good days, and she wishes Cal could remember that too. And again, this is a better version of Marissa than we got last week with the, I don't know where this is coming from.
This is her having like an honest conversation with someone, right? And it's also like really good bonding between the women. I have a feeling we're going to see more of Marissa in the future.
And I would not object to that at all.
She also is talking about how she kind of failed as a mother. She's acknowledging, I leaned on Cal to help me raise the other 3 kids.
Right.
They're fine because they had Cal.
That's a piece of shading that we have not gotten thus far. We haven't gotten that little info that basically Cal was a father figure to the other siblings.
And so she's acknowledging it here. Like, the other 3 kids didn't have it as bad because they had Cal. And basically what she's saying is, I wasn't good enough to Cal because I expected too much from him.
So Cal is chopping some wood, as he always does. Of course
he is.
Yes.
How many times have we watched Chad Michael Murray chop wood on this series?
I don't know. How many episodes have there been? So he tells Maggie that he doesn't know what he's feeling, and she suggests getting out of there. She thinks she knows of a place that could give him some perspective. And apparently that includes a hot air balloon. Cal is skeptical, but Maggie ends up insisting. So we cut to Cooper, who's talking to Rafe.
I just wanted to, when they go, we meet the pilot. This is, where is he?
He's piloting, of course.
His name is Seth Bailey, but I couldn't find any information on him.
Okay.
But that's who's playing the pilot.
All right, so Cooper's talking to Rafe, gives him some crap. He wants to do things by the book. And Rafe says, aye, aye, Captain. And
so basically he's like, Connie, she let you get away with things. I'm not going to let you get away with things. They're talking about incident reports because Rafe was like, I'll get him tomorrow. And he's like, you'll get him to me today because that's the rule.
Right. And I don't care about any of this particular drama. I don't really care about Cooper, and I'm starting not to care about Rafe. I'm not sure that I ever did.
I miss Connie.
Yeah.
Where is she? Come back, Connie.
Yeah.
Come back. Even if it's just to hang out, we miss you.
Right, exactly. Sully arrives at the house, or at the outpost, rather. He attempts to steal a cookie, and Edna slaps his hand away, but he ends up taking it anyway.
I mean, he owns everything, so he can eat a cookie.
It was just humorous that Edna attempts to stop him from taking a cookie, slaps his hand, and he still takes it anyway.
Right.
So he has to do more repairs at Helen's tomorrow. Edna's, of course, like, oh, this is taking forever. What's going on here? Linda comes in.
Sydney.
Oh, okay, that's funny. Yeah, well, I mean, both is true. Lindora does come in.
Yeah.
Okay. Sydney comes in and fills them in on the Rob situation. He's talking about moving, and Edna's like, we can't let that happen. And so he casually suggests that he may have a solution.
Yeah. And I also want to point out that she came in and was like, I just came to see if you needed any help. And Edna puts her to work frosting the cookies. They sure have an awful lot of just drop-in help.
Right.
That doesn't get paid.
Right.
Frank's not on the books, although he is part owner now. But he's even before that, he was always doing things even though he's retired.
Yeah.
Sydney is just here. She's been doing their books, but now she's like, can I help you with anything? Lola pops in all the time. They got Jacob helping them now.
Yeah.
They don't have any paid employees.
Right.
Are we still struggling for money?
I mean, probably. I guess, since they don't actually pay anybody, then maybe not. So Maggie and Cal are on the balloon. Cal says he's reminded that he's not the only one in the world with problems. And by the way, this is a beautifully shot scene.
It is beautiful. I'm very curious if this was green screen. Like the part of them actually on the balloon. I'm sure the aerial footage was drone footage or something.
And I'm going to give credit to Chris Grismer here. Yeah. Beautiful directing there. Maggie says if he wants to, he could fix things with his dad. Cal thinks it's not possible. And either way, Maggie is there for him, and they end up kissing.
Yeah, he thanks her for doing this for him, helping him get out of his head a little bit.
So he brings Sydney and Rob, and I see that I have Sydney in my notes now.
Okay, good.
And Rob to the old dining hall, which is basically not being used.
He said it was his great-grandfather had built it as a social hall. It's been empty for a long time. It looks pretty dirty and grungy. Yeah,
but, it can be cleaned up. Rob says he can't accept this, and so he's like, why not? And basically, Sully ended up giving them the money for the restaurant.
Shandon's.
Did we know that previously?
I don't think we did. At least I don't remember that fact. I don't think our U.S. cut knew that anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Which is interesting. Like, it shows, like, more of that, like, community, who Sully is in this community. This has nothing to do with Maggie. She wasn't around.
Right.
This is Sully supporting the people in the community and Rob being part of that,
right?
Regardless of Maggie being here,
right. And Sully basically says, "Look, I have some competition now. If we open up a restaurant here with a talented cook, that might help me out." And basically, they say they have a deal, and we don't know the terms of this deal.
I don't know the terms of the deal. The way I figure it is,
Sully's not going to charge him.
He's getting it rent free, or maybe very cheap rent,
right?
And then Rob will keep all the profits from the restaurant, but Sully hopes that it'll help bring people into the campground.
Yeah, because it's on the campground grounds, isn't it?
On his property.
Right.
But it would be, publicly accessible as a restaurant. I don't know. I still don't understand the geography of this property or town in general of Timberlake.
Well, we know where the property line is.
Do we? Because that property line seems to be where everything is happening this season.
I guess so.
And then also, I was reminded of the social hall that they used in season 1. Remember in season 1 they had a land blessing, and then they had a dance at a big social hall?
I was actually kind of curious.
Where was that?
I was actually kind of curious why Sully wasn't just taking him to that.
But, if you have that, we know that's in use.
Right.
So you had 2 of these big social hall buildings on the property?
One of which is not getting used and is just collecting dust. And
I mean, they both are.
Right.
Other than once a year when they have this dance.
Right.
I don't know what's going on here.
Right.
I think they forgot that they used a building already.
Right, probably. So Cal and Maggie get back from their little balloon trip. His mom asks to talk. Cal tells her she should have told him, and she more or less concedes the point. She's like, yeah, I should have. He didn't want to. And I fought against that, but, And Cal basically gives her crap, or like, oh, well, you're always doing what he tells you to do. And Marissa basically fires back on this. She thought it was important to have a father around, even if he wasn't perfect. She wishes that things could have been different. And, after a while, Cal apologizes and saying, I didn't realize how hard this was on you. And Marissa says that it was hardest on their father, or his father, rather.
Right.
Maggie talks to Jed, who is not feeling great. He's happy,
and he's whittling on the porch. Yes, that's important.
It is. He's happy he got the chance to meet her. He didn't understand why Cal moved away till now, and it breaks his heart that he's the reason he's going to carry around the anger for the rest of his life. He always hoped the two of them would talk things out, and basically patch things up. But Maggie doesn't. Maggie thinks it's not too late, and then Jed decides that he's really tired and decides to go lay down. And Frank and Jacob are in the woods. They discover the lichens of the...
Some rare lichen. Jacob's very excited to find it.
But it's dying, and they realize it might have something to do with the nearby construction.
Yeah, Jacob says it's probably environmental toxins, and Frank's like, let me show you something. And 3 feet away is the construction.
Right.
Again, everything takes place on this property line, apparently.
They already would have heard that noise, by the way. So it's not like... Ooh, let's go check out this mysterious construction over here. I mean, they would have heard it.
Yeah, it was on the other side of this bush.
Right. It kind of reminds me of that Quantum Leap episode where, Ben can't find the house, and then all of a sudden it's just around this rock, and there it is. But anyway, okay. So Maggie makes an attempt to get Cal to talk to his father. He thinks it's too late. It's really not, because he's not dead yet.
Right.
Cal says he can't say... He changes what he's saying here. He says he said goodbye to Lynn. That was the hardest thing he ever had to do. He can't do it again. And Maggie says, I'm sorry. I know this is hard. But if you can't do it for yourself, at least do it for him.
And she basically says, I'm worried that if you don't, you're going to regret it.
And she's very, very right.
Right.
Cal goes and sits with his sleeping father. He picks up a carved duck and has a memory of waking up as a kid and hearing noises. And this actor is a different version of Cal.
So the Theo L.
Yes.
Who has been playing young Cal in the last few episodes is a teenager.
Yes.
This time we have younger Cal is how he's credited. He's played by Emmett Atwood. This is his first credited appearance. He has an uncredited listing on IMDb from...
Oh, yeah.
He was in episode 310, so the very last episode. He has an uncredited listing as Ghastly Child number 10.
Gotcha.
Which is interesting because there's only supposed to be 7 of them.
Right.
So that tells me they did recast some of them.
Okay.
So he's one of the kids that appear, when they all come out.
Gotcha.
at the end.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Emmett Atwood. We'll keep an eye out for him.
Yes, we will.
I'm sure he'll be doing things.
We'll probably see him next season in Prom.
I mean, it's very possible.
All right. So where was I in my notes?
So younger Cal is with Jed.
Yep.
He had a nightmare.
He says something about
he's worried about monsters. And the reason that this whole that this is the memory that Cal's thinking of is the duck that he was just looking at, the whittled duck.
Right.
Jed is whittling it right now. This is when he cut that duck.
And he ends up getting on his father's back, and his father gives him a piggyback ride.
So, in other words, he's remembering one
Right.
of those good moments that he had kind of forgotten about.
Okay, so Frank and Jacob arrive back at the outpost with the news of the dead Lycan, and they all think, including Sully, that this could be used to their advantage to shut down Perry.
Right.
So they're going to go talk to
The Nova Scotia Environmental Agency, the NSEA. Edna's like, maybe you should slow down. Is this a good idea? But all three men just take off. They're like, let's go there right now.
Nobody ever listens to Edna. And by the end of this episode, I mean, you know, throughout the series, I think Edna is more right than she is wrong.
Of course she is.
So you should really be listening
You
to
should
this woman.
always listen to the women in your life. We're smarter.
Yes.
It's just the way it is.
Okay. I accept it. All right. So Maggie and Marissa talk again. Maggie says she knows what it's like to be estranged from her father. She also knows how it feels to release that anger. And Marissa says, you know, you must love him very much. Marissa ends up talking about their past and about his illness and about how he didn't like how the medication made him feel. Curious if this is foreshadowing of Maggie and Cal's future together. I'm wondering if Cal is going to end up with some kind of illness of this type, and Maggie is going to end up having to deal with it. Because I don't know, the way this scene is, it seems like we're previewing Maggie's future with Cal.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah. Marissa says she doesn't know what she's going to do when he passes, and Maggie ends up suggesting that she can always come stay with them at the crossing.
Yeah.
So
that definitely feels like foreshadowing.
Yes, absolutely. Rafe overhears a conversation with Cooper. Cooper is talking to some person.
This is Danny. He's played by Glenn Lefchuk. Glenn was in 4 episodes of Chapelway, Books of Blood, and 24 episodes of Haven. It feels like Danny is Cooper's boss.
Okay, and they're talking about making some kind of change. And of course, Rafe does not know what this is all about, but I'm kind of curious if he thinks that the change that's going to happen is him getting replaced or something along those lines.
And Cooper says basically, don't tell anybody for now. Let's keep it to ourselves.
Okay. So Jed wakes up and he has a conversation with his son. And Jed ends up admitting he didn't like how he felt on the medication, that it really disconnected him from...
So really what we learned between both scenes, the one with Marissa and Maggie a minute ago, and this one is he did try the medication. It didn't work for him. He said it was too strong back then. It had a lot of side effects. It left him feeling numb and disconnected. And he thought that it was the better choice to just deal with his condition with, natural remedies and trying to just deal with it, as opposed to what he was feeling on this medicine.
2 things here. I'm sure you remember Fabio Gazelle, the person whose book I ended up writing, who was severely mentally ill. He told me at one point that if he took all the medications that he was supposed to, he would pretty much just be laying in his bed sleeping all the time.
Right.
Which is why he didn't always take his medications, because sometimes it wasn't worth it. Like, if all you're doing is, like, sleeping and checked out of life, that's not living. So at that point, what is the point?
Right.
So I think that's kind of similar to what Jed is going through, or went through here.
Right.
Is if he took all of his medications, he wouldn't really be living.
I mean, basically what they're saying is this was back in, like, the 80s.
Yes.
Maybe the 90s. I think Cal's a little younger than us.
Right. Medications were different back then.
Medications were different.
Yeah.
And he's like, it wasn't as, like, now he's on something that seems to be working for him. But back then he's saying that option wasn't there. He tried what was available to him, and it just wasn't going to work for him. And I feel like this is new information.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's totally new information to Cal, but it's new information to us.
Yes.
That he did try.
Well,
he didn't just say, like, I don't care, The
other thing is, the second thing, is that Cal has a child's perspective of the situation.
Right.
And even as an adult, which should be more rational, he still held on to his childhood preconceptions.
Right.
And that's very normal. Like, when it comes to your parents, like, you know, if you end up encountering your parents as an adult, you'll sort of semi-regress to, you know, childhood thinking, because you can't really totally let that go, because it is formative in a lot of ways. So even though he's an adult and he should be theoretically able to see things in a more rational perspective, he still has that childhood baggage there that's kind of holding him back, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And basically this is their whole conversation, is Cal coming along and saying, I didn't realize. I never... Both the one with his mom and this conversation is like him being like, wow, I was wrong. I never looked at it from your perspective, ever.
Right. And, you know, it's all very normal. So, basically, Jed ends up saying that he didn't understand that he was the monster that Cal was always afraid of. And this conversation seemingly heals them both. Yeah,
they end up holding hands, and Cal apologizes, and they have an emotional breakthrough.
So Cal thanks Maggie for pushing him to talk to his dad. Cal tells his mother that he shouldn't have judged her. He hugs her and says that he loves her.
And he wishes he had done this years ago.
Yes. Frank, Sully, and Jacob return to the outpost. Tomorrow, the inspector is going to go to Glen Perry's site. Sully and Frank want to go down there to see it happen. And Edna's like, are you sure this is a good idea? You know, poking the bear. And of course, Edna's right, but of course they're not going to listen to her.
Right.
Yes.
Like, yeah, send in the inspector, sure, but why would you go?
Right. It's like, nah. So, Rafe returns home. Okay, this scene, god damn.
Okay, before we get into the scene, the very first shot of this, and I'm guessing you missed it.
Okay.
Because you don't have the observant eyes I do. We get an Easter egg.
Okay.
Right at the very first shot as we enter this apartment, on the coffee table. So Sydney's on the couch just before Rafe comes in. We get a shot of the coffee table. It's very quick. Blink and you'll miss it. Do you know what's on that coffee table?
No.
Shelley Thompson's book, Roar.
Oh, really?
Is on Rafe and Sydney's coffee table.
That's pretty cool.
About half a frame.
Gotcha.
So when I was watching live, I was like, was that Roar? And and then later in the scene, I'm watching. I'm like, are we going to see the coffee table again? And then later they do show the coffee table, and all I see there is a travel guide. And I was like, oh, I must have just like imagined it, right? But then when I was rewatching on streaming the next day to take my notes, you know, when I'm pausing, I paused and I'm like, sure enough, there's Roar right on the coffee table.
That's pretty cool.
Super
okay.
cool. Shelley Thompson, of course, played Claire Markiff in season 1. She's also the real life mother of T. Thomason, who played Jackson in season 1 and a brief appearance in season 2, and then he disappeared. I think he went to college was the story.
Yes. And she was
although it's summer now.
Right. Yeah.
Think.
Yeah, he should be off by now, but whatever. Yeah, so
and she wrote a book, Roar,
right,
which is based on her movie Dawn, Her Dad, and the Tractor, which Reed Price is in,
which she directed and wrote.
She directed and wrote the movie, and the book is based on the movie. And we interviewed her about
we did.
All of this, especially the book.
I think she was like our second interview.
Check it out. Yeah.
All right. So Sydney gives him the good news about Rob, and my literal note here is, Rafe can't even be asked to pretend like he's happy about the news. Like, I don't care what you're going through. I understand he's got a lot of stress at work, but your girlfriend is telling you good news, like really good news that she's been stressed about for a while now. You should at least pretend like you give a damn.
Right.
Pretend like you care about this good news. And, you know, pretend like you care about your girlfriend. I can't wait for these two to break up at this point. Like, you know, like last season, I was sympathetic to Rafe throughout the season. Not anymore. Like, if we could have, like, had, like, I don't know, a couple of scenes of them being happy together, like, early on.
I mean, the only one we had was making out, and that's what ruined it all.
Right, yeah, basically.
That one scene, and then they're like, oh, now we're having all these problems because of it.
It's going to screw up their life forever. We're 4 episodes in, and we're still talking about this kiss where she took off her shirt in the first episode of the season.
Right.
We can't move on from this by now.
Like, literally, they're talk about it here.
Right, yeah.
She apologizes. She's like, I didn't mean to get you in trouble. And he's like, it is what it is. I'll deal with it.
Right.
Again, it wasn't just her.
Right, no. Yeah, like I said, I'm at a point now where I'm starting not to like Rafe. And I kind of would like some scenes in the upcoming episodes that
he needs to apologize to her for how he's been acting.
Yes, exactly. All right, moving along. It's not quite where the point where he's Andrew yet, but he's annoying.
Fucking Andrew.
He's annoying me in every scene that I see him in this episode. Or it's either he's annoying me or I don't care about him. One or the other.
Yeah, he hasn't had much going on other than brooding.
Right.
That's his whole story.
I don't know if that's a writing problem or an acting problem, but that's all that Rafe has been doing this season.
It could be a deleted scene problem.
I mean, maybe.
There could be more that we're not getting.
Right, but Skylar Anderson said last week that there was no Rafe appearance last week.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. So Cal and Co. sit down for a meal, and Jed announces that he and Marissa are going to take one last adventure. Where are they going again?
They're going to take the old bus to the Grand Canyon. So that's quite a drive from upstate New York.
And Cal thinks this is a great idea. You know, I half expected for Jed to invite them along for this final adventure.
Yeah, I was like, oh, are we going to the Grand Canyon?
I mean, that would be pretty awesome. All right, so we cut to the next morning with Sully and Frank. Is Jacob in the scene? I don't know.
No, it's Sully, Frank, Glenn, and the NSEA agent.
Yeah.
Who is played by Tim Houston. And I'm very confused by this.
Okay.
So Tim Houston is a Canadian politician.
Okay.
He is the current premier of Nova Scotia.
All right. So he's getting a cameo appearance here.
It's a cameo, and I was confused. Like, is he supposed to be playing himself?
I don't think so, unless he's part of the NSCA.
Yeah, I tried looking that up, and I didn't find anything.
Right.
So I don't think he's playing himself. But it felt like a weird thing, because he's not an actor.
Right.
He's a acting government official.
So, I mean, I guess that's another...
This is like if, we were going to have the governor come read a random line on a TV show filmed here.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. He must be a fan of the show. I mean, like, Star Trek had, heads of states from other countries coming to...
I don't know. It just seemed really weird.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking up credits, and I'm like, I know the name Tim Houston, and I'm thinking I'm going to expect to see, like, oh, he's been in all these things we've covered.
Is he related to Whitney Houston?
I mean, who knows?
Right.
And then I'm looking him up, and I'm like, wait, is that who it was? And then I compared the pictures, so like, yeah, that's the right guy.
Right.
That's who this was. And then I was like, was there something political about, like, putting him in this? And I don't want to get into that because I don't know, but...
Right. I mean, our Canadian viewers could
I would love to hear some opinions on... Because I don't know anything about Nova Scotian politics, other than, like... Yeah, I recognize this name.
Right.
But I don't know anything about, like, his platform or anything.
I mean, I've heard some Canadian politics from Carla, which is mostly a relation into how our politics are affecting Canada. But, yeah, I don't know too much about Canadian politics. But, yeah, if there's a Canadian viewer who would like to shed some light on that, please feel free to do so. All right, so the inspector finds nothing. Glenn is pissed at Sully and says, "You really crossed the line, and you better watch your back." And Sully's like, "Is that a threat?" "Oh, yes, it is." Like, but what is he threatening exactly?
Okay, well, here's the thing. If this wasn't personal before...
It is now.
Which I don't think it was. I think this was business for Glenn.
Okay.
This was just this was the best place he could go if he couldn't get the land at the crossing.
Right.
Which was the land he really wanted. So he bought this land because he has some plan, I don't think it was necessarily personal. It definitely is now.
Okay.
Now he's making it his mission to make Sully's life as difficult as possible. I think it was just circumstantial before.
So, all right, but what did Sully actually do? I mean,
he reported him for something that wasn't true.
Okay, but if it was true, that would be
a deal. It wasn't true. I mean, it might still be true.
Right.
But the inspector didn't find anything.
All right, but, I mean, like,
Basically, they were accusing him of doing something illegal and having illegal chemicals here or something.
Okay. So, do you think if Sully and Frank did not show up at the scene...
I don't think the inspector would have been like, hey... Harry Sullivan reported you.
Right.
I think they would have just been like, hey, we're investigating some environmental issue nearby.
Right.
And he may have still thought Sully had something to do with it, but the fact that Frank and Sully showed up...
To go, ha ha! Yeah.
So yeah, in other words, Edna was right.
Of course she was.
I mean, if
Yes.
they're going to report it and do an investigation, sure. I mean, maybe, if he was doing, releasing toxic chemicals, you want to know that and protect the land. Great. But doing it just to try and get revenge against him and then going there and hoping that, you catch him with his pants down.
Right.
It was ridiculous. And Edna was very right. They should not have done that.
Yeah, and these are more of the scenes that I didn't really particularly care for. Like, I don't really necessarily care about this particular storyline that much, especially the direction they seem to be taking it in. But we'll see how it plays out.
It's funny because the episode description, which
Yeah.
I'd read this episode description, like, I think before we even started the season, right?
Yes,
Because
yeah.
we had them. And I'm terrible at avoiding spoilers for myself once we're, on these episodes that we have screeners for.
Right.
It reads like, they find a shocking discovery that might be the answer. Like, we're led to believe, like, hey, something good is happening here for the crossing.
Right.
But no, this is very bad.
Right.
This is all of Frank's worries. Frank and Sully and Edna, they're like, what are we going to do? Our business is going to crumble, which I thought they were being silly about.
Yeah.
But now they just made those things come true.
Right. Yeah. All right. We'll continue to see how that plays out. Cal and Maggie end up saying goodbye to his parents, who are taking off on their adventure. Jed says he is proud of him and the man he became. He hopes he might share some stories with his kids. Well, that's pretty presumptuous, but
Yeah, okay. And I found that a very interesting line. He was
Yeah.
like, remember the good times and maybe, someday tell your kids stories about your old man. Like,
Right.
in other words, good stories.
Yeah.
And Cal's like, you can count on it.
yes.
Has Cal changed his mind about having kids?
Yes.
Does he just not want to tell his father that he doesn't plan on having kids? Where are we at with this?
That's
because
fair.
his very, like, you can count on it
Yeah.
was really, like, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, maybe he's just placating his father at this point. And,
maybe,
you
but
know.
that seemed like a very, like, quick, very definitive answer. Like, of course I'm going to tell my kids about you.
Right.
I feel like if he just didn't want to tell his dad that he's not planning on having kids, that he would have said something a little less ambitious here.
I think that's a longer conversation than Cal had any intention of having with his father at that moment.
I don't expect him to be like, well, actually, dying dad, guess what? I'm not having kids.
Right.
But he could have just been like, okay, yes.
Right. I think he...
But he was like, you can count on it.
I don't think the line itself has that much meaning other than Cal trying to express the fact that he's found peace with his dad.
Sure.
I don't think...
I just found it really
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
knowing that they gave us this plot point of how he does not want children.
Right.
And I'm wondering if he is starting to change his mind about that.
I mean, it could be.
Because he's seeing how his dad is with medication.
Yes.
And maybe he's less worried about that than he was.
Perhaps, and I think that is something that we should explore, definitely, going forward. If that's where they're headed with that. But, yeah, it's definitely something you have to bring up again.
Yeah.
Because you did make it a point last season.
Right.
A big point, actually.
Right.
But, all right, so Jed ends up giving a gift, and Jed and his wife drive off. Jed basically tells him not to open it until after they leave, and Maggie gives him some space. Cal opens it, and it's a carving of a boy on his father's back. And that is where the episode ends.
Yes.
Very nicely done, I thought. Well, that's interesting, though, because, Cal had that memory, and his dad carved the memory. So I don't know what that says exactly, but it's interesting.
It is interesting. And then I was also wondering, is that what he was carving on the porch at the beginning of the episode?
It would make sense.
Because that was before Cal brought up that memory specifically.
Did Cal actually bring up that memory?
He brought up, like, sleeping in the tent
Okay.
and monsters.
Gotcha.
He didn't specifically say, remember you gave me a piggyback ride, but
Right, yeah.
he brought it up.
Right, okay.
So were they both already thinking about that moment? Or did he always give his son piggyback rides? So that's the happy thought, is that's something we had?
Right, maybe.
But yeah.
All right. I'm not sure when we're ever going to see this character again.
This might be a wrap on, Jed.
But I'm glad they didn't, just kill him off during the
Jed
course of this hour.
Jones.
Jed Jones. All right.
I hope they have a great adventure. in the Grand Canyon.
Mm.
And maybe we'll get to see them both again.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
We don't really have
Who knows?
We don't really have an idea of how long he actually has.
Right, because we don't talk about it.
This could be years for all
I don't think years, but
months maybe.
He might die next week, or he might still make it through the season. We don't know.
All right, so next week would be like 8 seasons from now, given the timeline of the show.
Or, in 3 scenes.
Right, yeah.
Because we skipped a whole year, apparently.
Right, yeah.
Where we froze everybody in time.
All right.
And we acted like nothing happened.
Right.
But it's the next summer already.
Yep. All right, do we have anything else to say before concluding?
That's all I got.
All right. We'd like to hear from you. What'd you think of this podcast? Or what'd you think of this episode? Stacie can be reached at.
I could reach on Twitter, Instagram...
Threads.
Blue Sky. I lost my thread. You can find me in all those places at TV and Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join in with the Core Productions Facebook page. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee. You can join the Core Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And, of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video as well as subscribe to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions.